speaks, Elizabeth will turn it off before we have questions and answers or have comments to make to him.
I now introduce as our speaker for today, Orenzo Charles.
Can you say something about him? What does he work for?
He's a member of SNUG, a program in Newburgh that it's gun spelled backwards. It's a program to try to prevent violence from continuing and recidivating in the city of Newburgh. He does a lot of work for this program and it's much appreciated. Okay, Orenzo, it's on you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that, I had to unmute myself. I just want to say I take great honor and privilege, and I have to have this pleasure to be able to share with you, just my experience and strength and hope and what my life has been able to bring to me this morning. Cynthia has been very supportive, and I'm glad to have somebody who reached out from a community standpoint and has been as supportive as she's been. And I just want to say thank you, Cynthia, for that, and introducing me to your circle, which has now become my circle. And I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Like she said, my name is Orenzo Charles. I am the program manager of the state initiative called SNUG, which is gun spelled backwards. This initiative was established around 2009. And the primary goal of this program is to reduce the gun violence in multiple cities in the state, in the whole state of New York. We have 12 sites, ranging from way upstate to Buffalo down to the Bronx, and there's 2 sites also in Long Island. What we do is we employ credible messengers from in these communities, and we employ them with a skill set to be able to have mediations that reduce conflicts as they arise. So we're post-active, we're pre-active and post-active. We're reactive. Unfortunately, if somebody is shot, we respond in that location, and we have rallies, and we try to, just let our presence be shown in that area to show that we are not here to support any of those actions, and we try to employ all the different alternatives to violence we can. And we try to employ that in those hot spot areas, which usually the outreach workers have a good relationship with the people from that area. So the combination of those methods usually bring out good results, and it keeps the police from being involved, and it reduces the interactions where there's gun activity and there's somebody getting sent to the hospital or unfortunately losing their life. And that's like a summary of what the SNUG program does. Now, in the midst of that, there's a lot of area where we have opportunity to touch a lot of lives. Our primary goal is to reduce gun violence, but once we get involved, we understand that it's not that many in the community actually pulling the trigger. So like you have a group of 10 people, there's probably 10 shooters within those 10 people, but those 10 people all need help on some level of care. So, our staff we're employing to be in there, to be those resources, be those change agents, to try to bring as many resources to all of those we can help. Not just the little percentage of the ones who we know are active shooters. Like, we are primary targeting those guys and those individuals, but we still want to help as many people as we can. And that's what we do. And, day to day, it's always, a life in battle when your feet are on the ground, trying to help as many people as we can. Now, me personally, I've been a resident in the city of Newburgh for about 4 or 5 years now. I'm not a born and raised resident. I'm from the 5 boroughs. I'm from Queens, Left Wreck City. My parents both from New York City, and we came up in the early 90s. We moved into a little town by Middletown called Goshen, New York. And I immediately hated it. I hated everything about it. I was a city boy, so you took my whole life from me at the age of 14. So I was really rebellious. Even prior to that, I was really very one of them energetic kids. You probably see me, I can't keep still. So even in class, I was one of those kids that always had too much energy. The teacher knew how to help direct. And despite I have 2 loving parents, married for 42 years. So I was blessed to have a father in the household the whole time. And, despite even having that blessing, I chose to make some decisions that consequenced me to go to prison, consequenced me, and just negative consequences repeatedly. Even when my parents did relocate me from the city to upstate New York, so instead of things getting better, they actually got worse because I used all that energy that I had and I channeled it all in the wrong things. So instead of coming upstate and becoming, a product of the opportunities that was given to me, I chose to go the other way. So I made a lot of hardships and I made a whole lot of life experiences that I didn't have to go through, but I went through. And at this point, at the later ladder of my 30s, when it was finally enough pain, I started to make some decisions. I started to take the suggestions that my parents were giving me my whole life. And the minute I started to make those small changes turned into big changes, and then my life started to change. And a result of that, I was able to start making some huge accomplishments. The first was hold a job. I was able to keep a job for a while. So coming home, I was able to hit the pavement, which was coming home meant not coming home to my parents, but starting fresh. And that's when I came to the city of Newburgh. And within that, I started in a known place called Pineapple Larry's. It was a halfway house. And from there, I walked to the bus stop and I made my way to the first job that would take me, which was washing dishes in IHOP. So I had to walk down Broadway every day, get on that bus at Family Dollar, take that bus all the way to Woodbury. And then from Woodbury, I would walk across, the highway to get all the way to Walmart over there to IHOP. And I did that for about 4 or 5 months. And, I sacrificed. I did what I had to do to get where I wanted to go, and things just started to change. From that position, I got a job at Polo. And I took that as a great opportunity. I worked at Polo for about 2 years. Within those 2 years, I got my KSAC T. And that was the plan, to use my life experiences and, get into a counseling field where I could help those who are living the same lifestyle that I was in. And then that was the only field where all my prison time and all my hardships would be looked at as a valuable asset. So that was a no-brainer. I got to become a counselor. So that was basically the aim. So then in the midst of doing that, the opportunity presented itself to become a snug outreach worker. And I applied for that through Recap. And it was funny because after I got out of the halfway house, I actually was in Recap housing. So I went from Pineapple Larry's into Recap housing. So I was always familiar with 201 Broadway. I was familiar with the staff and they were familiar with me. And I actually made that my office because the resources was there to get the transitional reentry program. So I was always in there until I completed parole. And then once I did that, they actually gave me the opportunity to work for them for the Snug Outreach team. And that's when I actually applied. I earned the outreach supervisor position. And I did that for about the first 4 or 5 months working for Snug. And that's when I really took heed and took the advantage of this opportunity and the trainings that they gave me, and it showed me, a skill set that I didn't even know I had. And I was able to cultivate it into what you see now as the program manager of this program. And now I consider myself a leader in this credible messenger fight trying to reduce gun violence. And in that, within the last year, we could say since January, we just start since January. We have 2 incidents in January where we have 3 individuals who were shot. So I want to keep those numbers there. So within this new role, I've been able to open up resources to the community that I didn't even know were there. And I just find it, rewarding to be able to put those pieces together. And being that I'm not a born resident of the city of Newburgh, we have generational beefs, right? North side don't mess with the south side. And every inner city has that. But because I'm not born into that, I don't have that. And I don't have that prejudice. So I feel like I'm able to do a lot of good work in this city. And the relationships I've been able to have in having this position has just been incredible. And I'm just an open vessel trying to learn from as many people as possible, because in this role I see like it's a community problem, so we really need community support to be effective. So I'm just trying to remain as teachable as possible. That way, when I meet people, we can like combine our ideas, our resources, and just build as many opportunities we can. Because that's what I feel like this position entitles me to do. It's just to try to build as many opportunities with as many circles as possible. So that's why I'm here today. You know what I'm saying? I'm opening up my resources for those circles that's here now, so we can expand our circles. And then, because this is a community fight, my community needs to be aligned with your community. So there's no violence that goes without a voice behind it to show the opposition for it. And this is the spaces where we can continue having these conversations, where we can combine our resources to, aim this fight. Because it's a huge fight and it touches everybody's community. Everybody on this call right now has been touched by some way and another by gun violence and violence as a whole. And I don't look at it as just gun violence. That might be what my title is for my job, but violence as a whole is something that needs to be addressed. And I believe it starts in the household. I'm a firm believer it always starts with how I'm talking to my kids, how I'm talking to my family. Then that becomes how I'm talking to my people at work. How I'm talking to my people at work, it becomes how I'm talking to the stranger in the street. And I believe as long as we keep these conversations going, we can be doing a whole lot more work. But I think that's enough for me. I don't want to talk too much. Definitely appreciate everybody listening, and I'm open for anybody who has any questions.
Mike?
Yeah, Marcia, can I suggest that we keep the recording going, because this may be the important part of the morning, this interchange. I think he came here to find out, to help us help his people. There's a huge gap in our cultures here, and we need to understand and learn from you. And one of the things you could do is tell us, how can we help? What can we do that will make your life and your job and the mission that you're working towards easier, better?
I think that's a good idea, Mike, because there's information. I know I have questions that I want to ask Orenzo to learn more. So I'm good with that, unless anybody has a major objection. We can see how that goes and just sort of play with it a little bit. I wanted to ask a number of things. What kinds of issues do you hear from the folks that you're dealing with, Orenzo? What are the kinds of issues that you encounter in their in their lives?
To answer that question, I want to go back a little bit because I forgot to explain the purposes of those music, those particular songs. Good morning, good morning. I know a lot of people wasn't prepared for that energy, but that energy is a reflection of the mentality and the feelings that go behind a lot of the actions that happen right before somebody pulls out a gun.
Yeah.
That first song called Mobb Deep, Survival of the Fittest, is a description of what I felt. That's a description of my mentality throughout my whole adolescent life, up until like my late 20s. That's the anger. When you see a young man, that's what they're feeling. That's the pain that they have inside. And when it comes out, it usually comes out in the form of violence if they don't know how to channel it. So when you hear that aggression, that's pain and trauma untapped or like that's not been dealt with. So now when you come with the second song represents, it's that pain is still there, but it's controlled. It's just, and you can hear the inspiration, you hear the confidence in it, but it's not, that's still trauma, but it's dealt with in a place where they healed. So now you got a place where you got hurt people, because hurt people are going to hurt people, and then you got healed people who are going to heal. So those two songs represent those two different mentalities. So now to come back to answer your question, the main thing we see is trauma. And just like he said, we have a generational gap, and that generational gap just keeps getting, bigger and bigger. But then when we don't deal with the trauma, that generational gap becomes generational trauma. That's the same way, it's passed on the same way. And each generation, they have their way of unleashing it. And they teach us that right now that violence is looked upon just like they look at addiction as a disease, and it continues to spread once it starts to spread. So the way they teach us to identify it is to identify the highest transmitters, which is those in the community who got the highest influence. Because once you get those, you pinpoint those, and you can start changing them, everybody else falls suit around them. So once we identify them, then that's when we intervene and we try to change those influences by having these conversations, showing them what the consequences are that I've went through. They don't got to do the same thing. But just to answer your question in short, it's the trauma that get left untreated in multiple different households that usually lead out into the street.
Wow. Yeah,
Mhm.
I can imagine how hard your work is. And I have to praise the energy and the stick-to-itiveness that you demonstrated to get out there to that job at IHOP and cross the highway for 4 months just to get a dishwasher job. Sir, that takes guts, and I got to admire that. But what could I do? How can I help?
The main, just being present, just having like these conversations are always a start. I mean, we love when people come to our organization, and organizations always love to say donations, because, financial, impact always help organizations, especially because we ran by grant money. This program is basically here because of the taxpayers of the city of Newburgh and Orange County as a whole. So, those are always helpful, but like just to have more feet on the ground, more voices when we have these open discussions, and just when you have the opportunity to see an opportunity to do some change, that's where the fight is at. It's like human justice. Everybody advocate for human justice or human rights, but we can't get that really until we get human justice. You know what I'm saying? To the point where we're all looking at each other as straight human beings, and then I'm going to have a too much self-worth of myself as a human to want to do anything to you. I want the same thing for you I want for myself. So it's just that having that equality looked upon everywhere, and then having that in the community. That's the main thing. Once we get that, then we can start talking about, everything else. But until we all having that on that same accord in every household, and everybody's advocating for human rights, because that's what's going to get us to the point where we have human justice. Our justice is never going to be on an equilibrium level, because we're not all equilibrium on the human side, or looking at each other as different in one shape or another. So, it's just having these conversations continuously, and then having our kids understand that. That's where it's going to really, take
That's
heed
right.
of what our kids see us, how our grandkids are hearing us talk. We could tell them everything, but then once you turn around, you get on the phone, you're talking to your peoples, and every word is, that nigga this, or that nigga, or that. If you're spilling that energy out on your regular conversations on the phone, your kids is noticing that. That's what they're listening to. They're listening how you're interacting with your friends and what you're doing, and that's what they're going to emulate when they get outside. And that's where we got to get more conscious, I think just more intentionally thinking, more intentional having these conversations is where I could get the help at.
Does Snug have regular meetings? Do you have a group that gets together on a regular basis and talks to each other about these problems?
If you look at my background now, that's a gala, or which is an event. We have events monthly. we always have either virtual events or events in person in the city of Newburgh. So we're pretty active, and we're getting more active. We just fortunately hired 2 new employees. So with more employees gives us more opportunities to do more things in the community like this. You know, and we're going to just keep continuing doing as many presentations as possible, churches, local businesses, get the word out there, and you know, to get our contact information there.
Do you have a place to meet?
Yeah,
Where
we have multiple offices at 201 Broadway, and then
201 Broadway.
201 Broadway. I have my own office. We also have a hired social worker at 280 Broadway.
Okay, but those are pretty small places. Do you have a place where you can get a lot of people together and have a conversation?
We have an Armory. We use a lot of other public locations like the Armory.
Armory.
Newburgh Armory. We have a lot
Okay.
of our events are in there.
All right. So if I drop into 201 Broadway and find you and others with Snug, maybe we can figure out a time to have a meeting, because frankly, I don't understand your problems as well as I need to in order to be able to help.
Okay. Yeah, my office is always open. My actual office is 280 Broadway. You can always come in. We all DCJS is Department of Correctional Justice Services. They fund this program. They also funded us a full equipped recording studio.
Wow.
And that recording studio we also use open to the public for free to engage with the community, to get them into doing the things they're already into doing, but just try to take a little more positive curve to it. So they employed us with that as well as an asset to use it with the program. So like we're definitely open to different ideas, to try to implement the stuff that we have and just make it more impactful.
So when can I meet you at 201 Broadway? Is there a day and a time when we could be sure to meet each other?
I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. My doors are open. Monday,
9 to 5? You're there that much?
I'm there past 5, but on the clock, what I get paid to be there is 9 to 5.
I see.
They say it's on me, but
Okay,
Which
Jim, Mike, I'm
Yeah.
gonna shush you now.
Okay.
Jim Carvin,
Yes. Before I was a member of this organization a long time ago, this community actually was in Newburgh, and they fled. I guess it was around 1970 when a lot of groups fled Newburgh because things had gotten pretty bad. As a group, we have been discussing the fact that, number one, we don't have a lot of diversity in our community, and we would like to move in that direction. One thought is to occasionally, perhaps maybe once a month or something, rent some space in Newburgh and have our service there, actually somewhere in the community. We would still, of course, be on Zoom for people that access our services via Zoom. Do you think something like that would be helpful and in some way contribute to the kind of work that you're doing?
Yeah, I would believe so. I believe the as many opportunities, as many doors that we leave open for the families, as well as the victims and you know, the people, the kids that we're targeting. I think all of that is an asset.
I guess what I'm thinking is, if the same group rents a space in Newburgh and has our meeting there, that's not going to provide any additional interaction with people in Newburgh if they don't come to our service or come to some event that we hold. In other words, how do we get involved with the community? What are some things that we might do that actually would enable us to interact with the community? Have you any ideas?
I mean, yeah, the organization Cynthia works with, she does phenomenal work. They did the drive. That was the last event they did. Prior to that, they did the brake lamp where they fixed multiple cars, brake lamps for free, and they had cars pulling up all day. Actually, we collaborated with them on that event, and we brought our table outside as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we fed people that day. I can't remember now if we barbecued, but events to that accord work very well in the city of Newburgh. And those right there were great ideas. I think she's gearing again to do another coat drive, if I'm not mistaken. But any type of tabling event, especially when you're feeding the people in the city of Newburgh, they come out. And then that's the opportunity where you could give them the information that you want to give them, or let them know that it's just an open program that's going to be coming in the city of Newburgh. And then based on survey, you see who want to participate. And I got a huge outreach team. So my outreach team spends a lot of time in the community. So a lot of times what we do is we develop a flyer, and while we're outside engaging, we'll find out how many people might be interested. And that's when I say a lot of the events that we hold is open invitation. And it's based on our feedback on, who's going to be interested in that. So that'll be something similar to what we would do in that regard.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nan?
Good morning. Can you give me an idea of a day in the life of one of your outreach workers in the community?
Okay. Well, from my outreach worker staff point of view, what they do is they shift starts at 1 to 9, and it's depending on what's going on. That's like the winter hours. Summer hours, they shift can change from 2 to 11, 3 to 12. Depending on the data that we get back from the police department, and that's basics. Our really only relationship with the police department is we get data from the shot spotters. So that data lets us know where the gun activity is happening at the most of that month. So then that's where my team would do majority of their outreach, efforts based on that data. So when we get that back, I know, okay, they come in at 1. A couple things they do within that couple hours is try to find out where they're going to be doing presentations at. I give them the opportunity to do that. Then what we do is we do a briefing. Within that briefing, we collect a lot of information between each other, what's going on, who needs to be seen. Each one of my outreach workers has a caseload of 6 to 10 individuals who they work with intimately one-on-one. So based on that briefing, we'll see who has to go be seen, make sure there's no immediate emergencies. And then from that point on, my team goes out in the community and they try to find situations they can mediate. If not, they're dealing with their caseload. That's usually what they're doing the remainder of the shift. When they come back, we do a debriefing, make sure everything is all right. There's nothing that needs any immediate attention. From that, we're working on what needs to be worked on as far as if there's anybody need IDs. Everybody has a lot of stuff based on their caseload. We kind of like collaborate those efforts before the end of the night. And then that's usually how a shift goes if nothing bad happens. If something happens, everything gets put on hold. We find out as much information as possible. Usually what happens is, let's say if I got 4 outreach workers on staff, I'll find out of that shooting or the victim who has the closest relationship with either one, right? So whoever does have the closest relationship, that's the individual who will try to make immediate contact. Based on that contact, on that conversation, and give us an idea on how to approach it. We'll have some team members will go to the hospital to engage with the family members of a victim, try to degress them from, that, it's a harsh dealing with a family member who has another family member who's been shot. So we just try to be present so they can see us there. Our presence alone de-escalates the situation. A lot of times the hospital's on lockdown, family members not allowed in the hospital, that security guard or police officers telling them that they can't get in. That makes that family member immediately get disrupted. They don't want to hear nothing else. We come along, we tell them the same information, but it's coming from us, and it gives them a breath of fresh air, enough for us to buy some time. In 45 minutes to an hour, they usually get unlocked down, and that one family member usually get in. So we help that hour. We're there to help make that as smooth hour as possible. And then as since I've been program manager because of COVID, I haven't had the opportunity, bless you. I haven't had the opportunity to go in the hospital to talk to a victim. But the model of the program is like when somebody's in the hospital and they're shot, one of me, or if not my staff, is in their victim, talking to the victim, trying to get more information and de-escalating from that aspect as well. And in hindsight, that's how the program will be functioning in the near future. Right now, we're still working with the collaboration with the hospital to get to that point.
Thank you so much. It really is true grassroots work every day.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your work.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Lydia?
Hey, I'm Lydia, alcoholic type person who went through the system in recovery. I had DWIs and I was thrown into prison and could not afford ways to get out of that. So I experienced firsthand what it's like to be completely isolated from support and help. And I was experiencing a lot of reverse prejudice because I appeared to the people in jail that I should be affluent, that I should be white, educated, no problem. And not to make a long story short, I ended up in Albany in a very, very dangerous place where a lot of things happened to me. And the street was safer than this place I was sent to for 9 months. I don't ever talk about this stuff because it's really, I don't know, it's not, who cares? I mean, I've experienced people not giving any rat's ass because I look like this shouldn't be happening to me. Plus, I was older, so I got instead of racism, I got ageism. But before I made those mistakes, when I moved up to Cornwall from New York, where I had been doing productive work to care for my mother, all these wonderful programs that I was involved with were available. I would come up to Newburgh from Brooklyn and work for a group called Neighbors United for Justice and Housing. And that was a precursor of Habitat. And I would write songs and sing them and went on to study conflict resolution, got a couple of certificates, and I worked with teenagers to create spoken word as well as their little kids to create songs and movements while they're mostly mothers, but some fathers were getting counseling for conflict resolution and dealing with the nitty-gritty problems of connecting with agencies, trying to get the assistance they needed, and dealing with the bureaucracy, which hobbled them at every turn. So that's my experience. Of course, the recovery is strong and good and has been in place for many, many years. But my experience is extremely useful as a singer and a guitarist. And I have a long history of working in this field with children. So I'm offering my ability to connect with children like I did in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Queens in New York, helping all these kids to express incredible joy before they experience nothing but repression and scolding. So that's all I have to say. I'll print my website, which includes my phone number. And if this dream comes true where we get to meet once a month in the city of Newburgh, and some of the adults want to relinquish their kids to sing along of social value. These are songs that make a difference rather than row, row, row your boat. But they will be fun songs that the kids will co-create. I have done this. It has been successful, but I no longer do this because I don't live anywhere near where my connections were. And it was 20 years of doing this, 25. So thank you very much for coming. And I know it's desperate. The last time I worked in Newburgh, and I'll close with this, I was a substitute teacher briefly when I was before I became full-time, my mother's caregiver in Cornwall. And I would go to the junior highs. They kept assigning me to the junior highs because I'd walk in with my guitar and it would have all kinds of stickers on it. And all the kids would say, ah, here she is, the singing substitute. And boy, did they get into making up songs and having a really productive day in junior high, I called it, middle schools in Newburgh. And I did that for about 6 years before my mother's condition got worse. So thank you for letting me spout. I really want to help. Thank you. Bye.
No, thank you. And I want to say I care too. I wanted to hear to say nobody cares. People want to listen. You know what I mean? And I appreciate that. And I'm sorry you had to go through that as well.
Thank you very much for saying that. Yeah, there was a lot of violence and physical abuse, but I think that was directed at me because I was old and white and stupid. I really believe that we can change it on both sides of the road here. And I will print my name, so if I can help with younger people to create songs or just to relax and chill, I would be very grateful to be of assistance with you now.
Okay.
I live in Beacon, across the bridge.
Well, that's something that I look forward to contacting you with. Me and my partner have started a program in the Armory, and it's called Music and Lyrics. And that's what we're doing. You know what I mean? It's become part of their Saturday enrichment program, and we're working with kids from first grade up, and we're just showing them different ways they can put lyrics together to express themselves. And then, the ultimate goal is basically to work with the little kids, but we want to work with the teenagers as well, to show them that they can express themselves with music, and it doesn't have to be that drill music. You know what I'm saying? That drill music, that energy is spawning out into the streets, and it's really killing our kids. And it, like I said, it's untapped, and it's pure energy that they don't know how to channel. And like you're saying, you have a gift where you have that ability to touch them at a young age, which is great. And we have 5 hours that we do that on Saturday from 9 to 2. And yes, this past Saturday was our first Saturday yesterday. So it was great to have this opportunity. And I would love to have the further conversation with you, so you can help us correlate that. So my information is also in the chat, but we can follow that up after this. Thank you.
Anybody else want to ask a question or make comment? Okay, I have one more question. Can you tell me what are some of the resources that you folks are able to offer people? What's the nature of the resources that you're able to offer? I hear you have a social worker. Do they provide counseling? Are there issues or help with housing, or, what kinds of stuff so far are you able to help provide?
Well, us as a whole, we work for Recap. So working for Recap, we're attached to all the resources that Recap has. So we'll go into the conversation. Recap has Newburgh Services, Recap, which is aligned into housing. That's food and nutrition. Newburgh Services also aligns with a lot of immigration help. So there's a lot of undocumented services that Recap helps them with, paperwork and making sure they have all the identifications and all of that stuff intact. Recap also is working with DSS, so they have helping all the families in the city of Newburgh with doing their HEAP application, as well as they have their own fuel fund. So if they're not eligible for HEAP, they could be eligible for this other Recap program, which is a fuel fund, which is, I think, accredited at $800 to help any city of Newburgh residents that are eligible for that. Recap also has weatherization program resources within them. Recap also has parole reentry, who we work very closely with. Parole reentry has a case manager and a parole reentry coordinator named by Denise Johnson, who has been a huge asset overall to the whole program, but just the city of Newburgh, because she helps so many people on so many different levels. helping her has helped me see the wide range of mental health problems and cold barriers that we deal with in the city of Newburgh that's unfortunately not being addressed. So you're dealing with so many issues, so many people who are dealing with issues and they have mental health untreated issues, and then they have to deal with being on parole. Denise has been a very good advocate with, making sure they're getting treated with the rights they should be getting treated with. And then at the same time, making them accountable for when they're not holding up their end of the bargain. So, Recap has that huge resource with that within itself. And then the SNUG program itself, they offer just the immediate resource of mentorship. We have that immediate resource to our caseload. We do have a financial, I don't want to say, it's a way we have a financial way to give them some motivation toward doing things that they accomplish. We have, depending on our caseload, if they want to go to a tuition, we have some funding toward that if it's allowable. You know what I mean? It can't be something outrageous, but we do have financial monies where we can try to help financially put them in the right position. Like I was telling you, we have a full-fledged recording studio. So DCJS tries to find everything that overall will fit every site and help it make their job more impactful. And then they'll, like you said, they funded that studio, not just in mine. Every 12 sites has a studio on site for their staff and as well as the community to use.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
A good start.
like,
I didn't know
also-
if any of us might serve as mentors, if there was any need for somebody to just have somebody in their camp, to talk about things or cheer them on or say, no, not that way. Go to the right, not the left. I don't know.
Yeah, that help. That does help. Just the fact of like this field of credible messengers, outreach workers, violence interrupters, the whole field could just use as much community support as possible, because that is the resource, that field of having people from the community who's been through some stuff, who are credible and can go back into that same community and have some type of influence. That field is huge. So that resource is infinite in the communities we serve.
Okay. All right. If that's it for everybody, if there's anybody else, otherwise we're going to close before we do our extinguishing of our chalice. We're going to close with what's